everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of the Top 10. I am John Roca.
And I am Matt Nost. We are here to bring you another week of movie discussion here on the show. This week, thanks to the release of the new film, Elvis, from Baz Luhrmann. I know certain members of this household are really looking forward to it. Others will be begrudgingly seeing it. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. That's all I'm asking for. So, Mr. Luhrmann, usually make a visually stunning film, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I got a chance to see it. I can't say too much because the embargo, whatever. All I'll say is I loved it. As an Elvis fan, it checked all my boxes. And I think visually, Matt, you're going to be very blown away by the movie. But just know it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It is not a short film, so you're going to be in there for a bit, bro.
Oh, man. That's a long fucking film.
And the last 10 minutes are all or the credits, but still you get.
Did you see that Harry Styles was lobbying hard for the role?
Yeah.
And Luhrmann turned him down by saying, "This is the best spin I've ever heard. You're already an icon." So we can't have an icon playing an icon.
Yeah.
You need to tell your own story type of thing. It's like great spin. Great spin. I have no idea if he's a good actor or not.
I don't know yet. There was a new trailer for the film that he's got coming out with Emma Corrin, who played Princess Diana in The Crown.
Yeah.
And the trailer dropped earlier. It looked good, and I liked what I saw of him in that trailer for the film that Olivia Wilde's directing. It's coming out later this year, so we'll see. It could be the second ascension level for Harry Styles, where he now kind of tackles acting, and maybe I feel like he's tackled music. He's not quite Justin Timberlake, I think, in terms of capturing or having the music that kind of Justin had, but he has a chance here to kind of maybe go above Justin as an actor and do better, because certainly the projects he's in and the stuff I've seen makes it feel like he's got another gear for greatness in that field. So we shall see.
Yeah. We just don't know yet. So to be like, I want to play Elvis, be like, I need to see you do a couple things first before I hand you the reins to.
I think,
but not like I know this other guy either.
Austin Butler hadn't done much before Elvis either. So
but at the same time, I already have a working. It's tougher when you just assume, well, that guy's an actor. And he was good enough in the room, and he has the respect of the director and whatnot. We already know Harry is an artist on this side. So the transition, the suspension of disbelief is just much higher. So you got to crush this.
Yeah.
Whereas my bar is much lower for an unknown. So it's who knows? Just Harry's getting a lot of run over the next 2 years. And this will determine whether or not we see him as an actor.
Yeah.
For the whatever, however long thereafter, however long he wants to act, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I just heard that about Mr. Luhrmann, and I was like, that's good spin. It's a good spin.
Yeah, I mean, Austin's been around for a bit doing the kind of young adult stuff, like he was in Life Unexpected, Switched at Birth, The Carrie Diaries, which is that Carrie prequel for Sex and the City, the Shannara Chronicles. So he's done some stuff. He was even Tex in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was Tex Watson. So he had a small part in that. So he was laying the groundwork, I guess. And then got this part. So, and I think he's great in it. And he might get nominated for an Oscar. Don't be surprised. I'm just throwing it out there.
So long as the movie is good.
Yeah.
And he's good, there's always a chance he's going to get it's fucking Elvis.
Yeah, it's Elvis.
So if you manage to pull off anything like what people assume that guy was like, because not many, the number of individuals that have a working history or knowledge of what it was like to watch Elvis and whatnot is dwindling by the year.
That's true. This is very true. It's absolutely true.
You need to live up to the lore of the man.
Yeah.
It's much like how, in your estimation, Marilyn is almost an insurmountable role.
Yeah.
Because at this point, we're all living off the the legend, the myth.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to,
Yeah,
and look, if Kim Kardashian couldn't do it in the dress that she destroyed, nobody can. You know what I mean? Nobody can.
I almost tweeted about that, dude, because I was so infuriated when I read that.
What did they think was going to happen?
Exactly. And people are like, oh, there's more important things. I can't believe people care about this. And it's like, fuck you. Because you've got petty, stupid shit that you care about. It's just, this isn't one of those things that you do.
I blame everybody.
So,
you shouldn't be lending out a 60-year-old dress.
I agree. Ripley's, believe it or not, is the real people to blame on this situation. Because the Kardashians destroy everything they fucking touch. They don't care about anybody but themselves. So giving them an iconic piece of memorabilia, what did you think was going to happen with her, who is, always constantly trying to show her assets off? She, destroyed it. And sure enough, no surprise, no real surprise that she did that, and of course they're probably going to come out with a statement blaming everyone else but themselves. So, but
it's going to be a bunch of finger pointing, and then they're going to file an insurance claim, and everybody will forget in about a week.
Yeah, for sure.
And
for sure.
That's precisely what is going to happen. As
Yeah.
soon as I read it, I was like, why did you give the dress?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that she's not at fault, and I'm sure there's 15 other people that are at fault as well, but it just seems stupid to give out a garment that is that old.
No, you're right. You're 100% right, man. You're 100%.
And more than likely that frail a material, considering it's a evening dress, and it's probably, it was form fitting and a nice silky fabric, something, thin.
She's not, let's be real, she's not a waif. So
it was Marilyn.
Stretch the dress out, and exactly, which is what I like about Marilyn. And I saw the new trailer today for that Ana de Armas one, and everyone's like, "Oh, this looks fantastic." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. She does not exude Marilyn in any way, shape, or form. That's Ana de Armas cosplaying as Marilyn." And yes, Ana de Armas is already sexy because she's a beautiful, young, sexy woman. She was great in No Time to Die. But that's not Marilyn Monroe. It just isn't. It doesn't work, for me. And it's the same way I felt when I watched Kristen Stewart and Spencer. I'm like, that's not Diana. That's Kristen Stewart. Trying to capture the energy of what they think Diana was like in that situation, but it doesn't really work for me. So you got to get it right. And I think Emma Corrin in The Crown, I think she did a way better job as Diana than Kristen Stewart did. And I'm curious to see how DeBecky does it in the next season of The Crown. But those things, like Hopkins looked nothing like Nixon, right? But he's able to capture essence. And at least they tried to physically make him look like Nixon. But with this, there's not. I mean, Ana de Armas is a waif, man. This woman was voluptuous. So I don't know. It bothers me because that's such an important essence to who Marilyn was. It's like trying to do Elvis, but you're bald. It makes no fucking sense. The hair is so important to what he did. I don't know, to who his look, rather.
I agree.
Sorry, I'm gonna get upset.
I just don't know anybody else that has this much passion for Marilyn. So good for you. Are you the JFK Jr. everybody was telling us was coming back?
Shit. How did you
Is
know?
it here in the flesh? That's why you're like so heated. Listen, my dad cheated with her. I know what she was like.
I know what my dad wanted.
Yes,
wasn't
this waif.
Eat a sandwich.
The only one, the only skinny mini he was into was my mom. Otherwise, he liked them thick. Everybody knows that about JFK.
Jackie Kennedy. Yeah, so whatever. That's just my feeling about it. So yeah, well, I know it's an unusual thing to be upset about. I know it is, but for whatever reason, it's organically something I get upset about because she's such a unique person in the history of film that if you're going to try and do her, you got to find the right person to portray her. And I don't think they've ever got it right. Yeah. They've come close, but never fully.
Well, I mean, we're going to run into that problem on today's show.
Hey.
Well, it's first off, it was impossible to make this list. But secondly, I would love to see the story. I don't know who pulls off this character.
Yeah.
I don't know who does this.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of them. There are quite a few where I'm like, yeah, actually, I could see. They even made my list. I'm like, I can see a number of individuals playing this part. I think it's a
Right.
good part. And there are others who are just like, God, they're so distinctively this individual. It's
Yeah.
really tough for you to sell me as this individual.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
But you do the best you can,
Yeah.
type of situation.
Considering, and I was really surprised because what we're doing is the top 10 solo musicians who deserve a biopic, right? Isn't that what we said? Solo artists. Sorry.
Yeah,
solo
yeah. Because
artists.
we've done bands that deserve it
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
And with Elvis coming out, we're like, solo artists, who are they that we don't have a biopic? I think there's only one on my list that technically the character was in a historical fiction type of movie
Okay.
where they're trying to make it as accurate as they can, but it's not solely about the individual.
Right.
It's a collection of people. So I was like, I think I'm gonna go ahead and go forward with that one. But everybody else, I tried to do a just general cursory search to see if I could find any biopic that's been done, or
Yes.
like one I left off was Hendrix because there's been a couple, but there was one
there have
recently with Andre 3000.
Right.
And I'm like, they've already done it a couple times. Why don't we give it a rest for a little while and come back to it?
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So that's what I did. But even with those criteria, this was still difficult.
Yeah. This was a tough list.
I stopped trying to think of artists. I got to a full page and I'm like, this is just going to continue. I'm stopping. And I'm sure, hopefully you have some people that I did not think about. And I'm like, oh, that would make a great movie.
We'll see. We'll see.
Because I got a whole list of super interesting.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but yeah, this is for Elvis coming out this weekend.
Yeah.
And also stay tuned to the end. We're actually going to get shout outs on time for the first time in a couple months. So we'll end, you'll get this. It'll be the last show of the month. We'll get our shout outs in, and then Boss Hog will be next week. Anything else you want to say before we jump in?
How are you feeling about the finals? You might win this one. You might get this one. You might have been right on.
Well, there is no me in that situation.
Well, you picked the war. You picked the
Yeah, but what is that? Yeah. Oh, I might win this. I put no money down. I'm not a Warriors fan. Like a friend asked me, he's like, do you care? Because we were talking about it.
Right.
I was having another discussion about the finals, and he doesn't watch basketball. He's like, oh, do you really care? And I was like, not really. I was like, I picked the Warriors in 6, so I wouldn't mind being right. But at the same time, I'd love a game 7.
Yeah, right.
Game 7 in the finals is pretty excellent.
In Golden State. And certainly the Celtics have proved they can win on the road in a game 7. So
I mean, look, they won a 6 and a 7 against Milwaukee.
It's true. It's very true.
And this is the first back-to-back loss for the Celtics, and I don't even know how long.
Yeah.
It's probably been minimum 4 or 5 months since they lost back-to-back. Are they really going to lose 3 in a row? That seems like a tall order.
Yeah, I know.
But my prediction was Warriors in 6 because I thought if it went to 7, the Celtics probably going to win it.
Yeah. Well, especially because they had the lead in that game going into the third quarter. I guess they'd hit that 3-pointer on the third, but it looked like they were going to stay in contention, and they'd survived that third quarter. And the last time they had a situation like this, they just kind of went ahead slowly but surely in the fourth quarter of the first game and took the victory. So I thought for sure they were going to win, especially with Steph not being able to hit a 3. I was like, oh yeah, they'll eventually grind him down with the defense and they'll get the victory here, which will be very interesting. Going into Boston, they could close it out on their home on the parquet. So the old school, well, not the old school, but the
Golden State's defense has been really good, and the fourth quarter offense outside of game 1, by and large, when it comes down to crunch time, Boston's offense has not been good. Robert Williams' knee, he's hobbling around there, and that makes a hell of a difference. He's playing, I think it's something like 7 minutes less than he did during the regular season. He's somewhere hovering around 22, and he played 29 in the regular season.
Yeah.
Which, did you see the Isaiah Thomas today? So the article came out yesterday from Yahoo talking about Robert Williams all the stuff that he's going on with his knee, and he just stopped getting it drained at this point because they were just draining it and it was refilling with fluid. And he's like, but the medical staff, assures me that there's no long-term potential chance for long-term damage. And Isaiah Thomas just tweeted out, I've heard that before. And you're like, I read that article and I didn't even think about that. And then I saw the tweet and I was like, that's, if anybody can criticize, it is Isaiah Thomas.
If there's one area he can still criticize in,
yep,
Isaiah, it's that area.
It is the Boston Celtics medical staff's ulterior motives.
Oh boy.
Yeah, exactly. Because then it becomes a discussion of like, oh fuck, yeah. And then if he is constantly playing with this, they did have to do surgery on the MCL, which is the worst option of all the options.
Yeah.
So he's probably going to have long-term effects of this once he gets older. So he's already, he's going to be hobbling around when he's an old man because of this. And now he's playing on it. So is it going to, does this hurt his future contracts? Like,
right.
Shit, I hadn't even thought about all that. I was just like, oh, okay, maybe he is going to be okay. I'd like to see the most competitive series I possibly can.
Yeah.
But IT, I was like, he's got a fucking point. He's got a real fucking point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't the Phoenix staff, that's for sure.
Yeah, they can revitalize Grant Hill's knees. Or as soon as I saw that, I started thinking about, think about how long Memphis kept Jaren Jackson out.
Yeah.
Forever.
Right.
And Clay wanted to come back much sooner, but the Golden State Warriors are like, we're going to ease you back in, man. We got to think about your long-term health and everything. And yeah. I mean, part of the difference is superstar versus star.
Right.
But the other is there a callousness in the Boston medical staff? I don't know.
Yeah.
Gordon Hayward went there and has never been the same. I don't blame Boston, but it seems like weird medical things happen there.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
That was a freak accident, and then he's never been able to stay on the court for more than 60% of a season since.
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, I don't know that's Boston's fault, but it seems fishy.
Yeah. And Paul Pierce got stabbed, so that stuff.
He did get stabbed. I would chalk that more up to Boston at large as opposed to the Celtics organization. The city doesn't have the best track record with African American athletes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So
ask Bill Russell about all that. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I hope they take it tonight, like you said, and we'll go to Game 7. But I mean, they've shown, as you said, of course, when we talked earlier, they have a proclivity to not win in Boston. So it could be, which they did in the fourth game. They just completely got.
Yeah, if they were going to win one of the two of them, it was like that one.
Yeah.
You had a much better shot, in my opinion, because this one just, even with Steph playing bad, given their defensive coverages, they ended up trying to shade a defender over to him, or occasionally were trapping and blitzing, and they weren't dropping as much, which just opens up the pick and roll and guys flooding in. Hence Wiggins getting that big dunk, the layup, and everything else. Draymond on the short rolls. So you got to pick your poison. Are we gonna? What are we gonna do about Steph? That's why I still think he's Finals MVP. The people pushing for Wiggins and be like, Wiggins isn't able to do any of that stuff if Steph doesn't have that tremendous gravity.
And I know we got to jump into this, but it's kind of crazy to think about if Golden State didn't have the Klay Thompson injury. Does LeBron go to the Lakers still? Like, that's the question at the end. Like, and do they even win the title during the COVID time?
No, I don't know.
If Klay is there with Steph, there's a very real possibility LeBron doesn't even have another championship for the rest of his career if Klay doesn't have that injury. I mean, almost like they're the Rockets to when Jordan went and played baseball. Because I still believe the Rockets would have never won a championship with that crew without Jordan going to baseball. No way. No fucking way.
I don't know. I'm glad that I don't have to deal with that reality as a Bulls fan.
True.
But to continuously get there every year and win the championship, I mean, the odds of that are astronomically high.
Yeah. Better that he's undefeated than
sure
6-2 or something.
Well, just to see him not even make the finals, peter out, being so tired.
Right. Yeah, he'd have burnt out eventually, right? I mean,
more than likely.
Both times he left, he burnt out, in essence, even though the Krause thing.
Or he does the LeBron thing of like in January, hey, I'm going to Miami to
Yeah,
recuperate, but I'm leaving for a couple weeks. I need to check out because I'm just constantly playing basketball.
I don't want to think about it
anymore.
Yeah. I hear you. So we'll see. We'll see what happens for sure. All right. Well, let's get into this thing. Let's get into this list here. Top 10 solo artists that we think deserve a biopic brought on by the Elvis movie coming out here next week or this week from Baz Luhrmann with Austin Butler. Matt, how does the show work?
We set the topic and we go our individual ways, create personal top 10 lists, show back up here. I do my bottom 3. He does his bottom 3. I do my next 2. He does his next 2. Then we trade one apiece. Once we have revealed our personal top 10 list, we create the shows between the two of us.
Boom.
So once again, impossible list.
Of course.
So
a million to choose from.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer regardless.
Okay.
So at 10, I've got Prince. That's fine.
That's a punt.
That's fine. You can go ahead and lay your disgust. I just don't think his life is as tumultuous as other artists. So they would make for better stories on some of these others. I think on my list, 8 through 10, kind of you could mix and match. You could have put Prince at 8. I'm fine with that. It's like when you get above that ish, I think it really starts to get interesting.
Okay.
At 9,
that's a punt. What's your 9?
That's fine. At 9, curveball for you, my friend.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton.
Oh, that is a punt.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? That's going to be one of my out of left field choices. Wow, really? Of all the I have so many written down, and I was struggling to come up with like a 5 or 6 for these last 3 spots.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Dolly's making 1 for sure. So now I have 4 or 5 for 2 spots. I was just like, she's dialed in.
Yeah.
Because it'll just be a fun, interesting conversation. And, looks like same wavelength here. All right. Of all the artists, too, so far we have 2 in common.
We have 2 in common.
I figured we'd have a couple, but nearer the 6 through 1 range.
Yeah.
In there. But anywho, 8, I've got David Bowie.
But they already did one called Stardust, right?
Did they?
Yeah.
He was one of the ones I didn't look up because I couldn't remember initially.
It was with Johnny Flynn. It wasn't sanctioned by the David Bowie people, so there's a technicality there you can get away with, man.
Okay. All right. No. I got no problem with that. I had no idea that existed. I didn't even look it up. Yeah, it came out 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah,
was it any good? Did you see it?
No, he's a good actor. The film itself didn't 100% get there, but I like Johnny as an actor. He was in Emma, that one with Anya Taylor-Joy. He's good. I interviewed him. Very nice guy. But the film itself, you could tell the fact that it didn't have the approval of the David Bowie estate. You could tell they were doing the best they could, trying to dance around the shit they couldn't talk about. And none of his music is in the movie by him. So it's not as cool as it could have been, I think. So
yeah, that's always a problem.
Yeah. So I think it still qualifies for you, man, because it's not.
No. I will swap out because there were others where I'm like, look, there's one coming up in a year or 2, or there's one person I chose because there's been a long rumored project, but that's.
Okay.
The individual that he's rumored with has a bunch of these long rumored gestating projects. And I'm like, whether or not this ever happens, who the fuck knows? All right.
What do you want to do?
I am going to substitute in.
Okay.
I'll go BB King.
Ooh, nice choice. I like that choice. Go ahead.
Swap out and put. Yeah, iconic guy for the longest time. And what I love about BB is he's had like waves of stardom.
Yes, right.
Which is rare for a blues musician of all genres. Blues is one where you could rattle off the 10 best names currently working, and I can't imagine the average person knows a single one of them.
Good point.
Yeah, I at this point, like my blues heyday when I was listening to quite a bit of it was 20 years ago. So I couldn't even tell you who the new best artists in that genre are like, oh, you got to keep your eye on so and so. He's put out like 1 or 2 albums, but really they're coming into their own.
Yeah.
Don't have the slightest clue who that is.
Right.
I listened to BB, but the youngest guy I might have listened to would have been Robert Cray.
Well, yeah, Robert Cray.
Everything else, beyond that blues I listened to was like of BB's era type of stuff. But his waves on top of it then gets embraced by other generations once they acknowledge him publicly and saying, you were such a tremendous influence on me. And then he gets this secondary wave, not quite the level of like Tony Bennett with Lady Gaga, where he gets elevated completely up, but the love of like Eric Clapton and other big names within the guitar world.
Right.
Like basically the story kind of is a young him, and then you see him bond with Lucille. We get a little bit of where Lucille came from, like this holy grail of guitars,
right,
for him at least. And then the circuit of what it was like to play down south in the I would assume it's part of the Chitlin circuit.
Yeah.
And slowly inching his way towards a crossover more mainstream, especially for blues, which is almost impossible. And he becomes the standard bearer of that genre for decades. Yeah, I think that could make for an interesting movie.
Okay. I like that idea, actually. Because, I mean, like you said, there's so many different phases and stages. And when he died, he was almost getting reappreciated again, right around the time when he died. And certainly going into Rattle and Hum, having that moment, I mean, getting a hit song with U2, that late in his career. And that's such a great sequence in the movie where he's like, man, I don't read music. I just do chords or whatever. And it's like, wow, this guy became so successful. And there are certain things like John Lennon couldn't read music. Same thing. It's just
I don't know many rock musicians that can read music.
Yeah. See, so it's just like, wow, this is interesting. So, yeah, I think BB would be great, especially because BB came up around that time. He was in Memphis. He knew Elvis. So it was around that time. So there's so much you can kind of weave into BB's story and all that he's experienced. And he was there for Rumble in the Jungle for Foreman versus Ali.
True.
At that live concert that they did there with him and James Brown and others.
Yeah, I think that his would have to be one where, like Ray, you span a long duration of time.
Yeah.
Because people don't know a ton of his backstory. Whereas a higher wattage star, I think sliver of time maybe makes more sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or one that the public is more aware of what their story is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's your 8, right?
Yep.
All right, here we go. So, all right, so my number 10 is George Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, I went with George Michael for a number of reasons. A, because he's one of my favorite artists from the 1980s and the 90s, and I thought he died in a tragic kind of situation. And there was a lot of drama with him because he struggled being a homosexual recording artist. And we can go from his start, when he's doing Wham, putting that thing together with Andrew Ridgeley, becoming the pop star, then taking the chance to go out solo, exploding with that Faith album, and then doing something that hardly any artist has ever done in the pop realm, is to sit there and go, wait, I've seen the plasticity of this life. I am going to write music that exposes the plasticity of life and this pop life and this fame. And I would argue writes an even better album in Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1 that is iconic in terms of construction. And so I think that's the story to tell. And then at the end, you could have the George Michael, eventually, succumb to this. He was caught in homosexual stuff and whatever. And so you can tell this story where he's a gay artist who kind of comes into the pop mainstream, becomes a straight sex symbol for many women. Meanwhile, he's closeted homosexual in terms of being out and what he struggles with, yet is able to create, in my opinion, one of the greatest albums of the 20th century. And so lyrics wise, music wise, whatever barometer you want to use. And so, in my opinion, it would be fantastic to see that story played out. And I think it would appeal to audiences nowadays who are much more open to looking at the struggles of LGBTQ plus people in our world, especially now with how much there's such political resentment against these human beings who have every right to exist.
Here's a little fun fact for top 10 fans.
Okay.
Before our matches in the Schmodown, to hype himself up, John used to sing very quietly to himself Last Christmas. Last Christmas, I give you my heart. He's trying to like just get zoned out. It's just like, wow, really a Christmas song. But shut up. I'm in the zone.
I'm in the zone.
Just
I love George Michael. I love his music, and even the stuff he did after Listen Without Prejudice. Some of the more dance poppy stuff he did was nice.
How much time do you give to the bathroom in Beverly Hills?
See, that's the thing. I think you have to address it, right?
You got to.
Yeah, it has to be an element of the film because you got to show what led him there. When he got caught, you see the just absolute devastation. There's a great documentary that was on Showtime about him that I would encourage anybody who's a fan of his, and even if you're not, if you're only like an occasional fan of his, to watch, because it kind of explores that a little bit as well, like what drove him to do things like this, the real devastation in his face and in his body when he's giving those statements, because he's so embarrassed. He's just so utter. The one thing he didn't want to get found out about, to get found out about in such a public place and get arrested and have it be all over the world, like that's no way to control how you want to come out. And
yeah, no, not at all.
So it could be also like a commentary on celebrity culture and like tabloids and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Too bad he couldn't do the Eddie Murphy going on talk shows and be like, I was just giving her a ride.
Yeah, right.
That's all I was doing. You don't really have that option.
We were sharing a stall because it was busy in the bathroom.
Yeah. It was a packed day in Beverly Hills. I was down. So it's a bathroom like on a green belt.
Yeah.
Down there. I'm sure you've seen it, but the first time I was down there and a friend was like, oh, that's the George Michael bathroom. And you see it. And it's just this nondescript cinder block building that's any park you've ever been to that has bathrooms.
Right.
That's what it looks like. It's just painted white.
Yeah.
Just like, that's it. And you see it and you're like, oh man, that sucks.
Right. And then you wonder, is this a self-destructive thing? Like he could have paid for anybody to go to his house. He could have paid for male escorts, could have paid for why?
He could have gone a quarter mile to West Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. And had a great time. But why?
Gone anywhere.
Right, exactly. Why sneak around about it?
So, Catherine never seen that before. We were driving through like a month ago.
Oh.
And just with the bars, guys up dancing and the doors open and just, it was packed.
Yeah.
And she looked over and she's like, are we in West Hollywood? It's like, yeah, we're in the heart of West Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right now. Thinking it was just, it is full on. Just the best in shape dudes dancing around in the tightest little shorts and no shirt. And you're like, man, it's good for you guys, but this isn't my cup of tea.
Yeah. So something to explore, I think, in my opinion. And there's obviously a lot of drama to explore with him in his life. And I mean, from the separation, the solo artist to, creating some incredible music, and then the fall from grace. And many people don't know this. He was the first one to do carpool karaoke with James Corden as well. So that's something to look up if you all want to look up. So then my number 9 is Billy Joel.
Go for it.
I love Billy Joel. There's no greater New York artist this side of Sinatra than Billy Joel. There isn't. And I would love to explore. Billy Joel's like Al Pacino. Like there's the 70s Billy Joel. There's the 80s Billy Joel. There's the 90s doing it a little over the top Billy Joel, like hoo-ha Pacino. And then there's the Billy Joel that's finally settled in, and he's the kind of rotund piano dude who's bald, who still tours and has great duets with Elton John or with Tony Bennett or whoever, goes to colleges and has great conversations with musical students there. But was married to Christy Brinkley and dealt with all the stuff that he dealt with and had some alcohol issues. So I think there's a lot that you can explore through the how can I say this? Through the decades of our country, socially and politically, through Billy Joel and the music that he's making and the changes that he's making, and how we went from the 70s, which was really gritty and kind of exploring the darker underbelly of America, into the 80s, and he's doing Uptown Girl and shit and all these pop songs, into the 90s, where it's We Didn't Start the Fire. So it's like, okay, what is the River of Dreams? He's becoming an older man. What does this all mean? So I think there would have been a lot I think there's a lot rather to explore with Billy Joel. And I think it would be a lot of fun. Plus that music is so fucking iconic. People would love a chance to kind of listen to it again and watch it again and enjoy the circumstances and surroundings of how he came up with some of his greatest music. So for me, Billy Joel. Just throwing it out there. No comments? Okay, thanks.
I like a lot of his music.
Yeah.
The dude himself, I don't give a shit.
What? How dare you?
I don't give a shit.
Why?
Look, everything I need to know about Billy Joel is this. He walks up to a microphone, and as he starts to sing, he puts his sunglasses on because that shit is cool. And you're like, no, that's the lamest thing. That tells me everything I need to know about you. You're not cool. You're not.
Fine.
That's my 2 cents. Do I think he writes a good song? Yeah, he's got a bunch that I think are, earworms that they get in there, and I'm singing them, and I'm a big fan. Grew up enjoying Billy Joel. Do I think he's cool? I've never once thought Billy Joel's cool.
That's insane to me.
Never once.
Really?
And he had like that monthly residence at Madison Square Garden, sold it out every time. He'd chop her in. Yeah. I can't even imagine what that's like. Oh, I got a standing residence that I sell out once a month at Madison Square Garden.
That's
obviously.
That's
obviously.
Yeah.
20,000 people a month go. This dude is cool as shit.
Plus, he went to he performed in Russia when no one was allowed to go perform in
the
Russia.
80s, sure.
In the 80s, which was so awesome. I remember watching that documentary too.
Yeah, and he put his sunglasses on, and they went crazy. But they also went crazy for blue jeans and Big Macs. So
it's nothing wrong with Big Macs. I like Big Mac. But yeah, so I don't know. Just I love Billy Joel, so I would love to see that, and even. I mean, can you get a guy who can go through all the stages of Billy Joel? I don't know. Can you find one actor who can play Billy all the way to where he ends up?
I'm pretty sure
where he's at.
Doesn't seem like that complex a dude.
How dare you? How fucking dare you? All right. Anyway, let's move on. Man's been married 4 times. Pretty incredible.
Is that what we say about somebody who's been married 4 times? It's pretty incredible. Good for you, dude. Let me pat you on the back real quick. Couldn't stick it out with any of them.
You get a supermodel in one of those 4. That's you're doing good. Those are good odds.
Yeah. But the accomplishment of marrying 4 times, not impressed by.
Walking back into the.
I mean, if that's the case,
under the breach.
Did you watch The Big Con? The new
documentary? No, I haven't watched it. It's on my list of things to watch.
Okay. Well, that dude was married like 16 times. So we're really saying congratulations. Congratulations to him as well.
Well, now you're abusing the privilege. I think 4 is the limit. After 4, you're.
Well, I think you're arbitrarily setting the limit of 4 because that's what your boy Billy did. God, I wish I had shades right here. They're 10 feet away, and I just put them on. Yep, there we go.
All right. So then my number 8 is another piano man, Stevie Wonder.
Sure. I thought about it.
I love Stevie, man. And again, Stevie starting out in the 50s with Fingertips, right? Young kid, prodigy, blind. And it'd be a completely different film than Ray, right? It's a completely different thing. But we see him come into the 70s and funk and Superstition and all the great music he did there. There's some great love songs there in the 70s as well. So much fantastic. Then it gets the socially conscious stuff like Living in the City, all of that he is confronting there as he becomes a spokesperson for the Black community in the 70s. And then into the 80s when he kind of softens up a little bit more with I Just Called to Say I Love You and other stuff. And then into the 90s as he becomes this iconic person in the Black community and what he endures and goes through and all this kind of stuff. And so for me, I think there would be a lot to explore with Stevie Wonder and find out more of the behind the scenes. Because I mean, the stuff with Ray Charles, you're like, what's really, and when you watch the movie, like, wow, I didn't know all that went on. Now, is it all chronologically accurate? No, but overall, it's kind of a surprise to see how much Ray went through. So I'd like to see what Stevie endured as a blind musician in the world, and how he was able to accomplish and create and make the music that he made for all those years. So,
Yeah, I just didn't put him on because it was like, well, we had Elton and Ray in the recent past, so I was like, well, to mix it up and have something different instead of another piano player. But
fair enough.
Stevie's on my side. He was in distinct contention.
Yeah,
along with a whole bevy of other artists. It's an excellent choice.
You could even have moments with him and Eddie.
Sure.
Eddie Murphy would be hilarious doing the scenes that they do. You want to press me? Take the wheel for a while, motherfucker. Love that bit. But yeah, so there you go. Number 8, Stevie Wonder. All right, what do you got at 7?
My 7 is a cheat.
Okay.
I went with Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right,
well,
go ahead.
The thing is, so I wanted to do one or the other, but I don't think you could do it because they become so intertwined.
You want to do a biopic now of Beyonce and Jay-Z?
They're the only
the current
contemporary artists,
yeah,
technically, that I chose for the list. I think they have enough of a story now where you could start thinking about it.
Okay.
Just with Jay-Z, I think the story would be juxtaposing their two rises. With Jay-Z in New York, living in the projects, father left, and it's just his mother raising him, and it's like 5 or 6 brothers in a small little apartment. And, he bounces around from schools, gets into trouble, starts selling crack.
Yeah.
He does his music hustle on the side, and then forms his own record label. And then by doing that, eventually he gets the record contract, and we see the ascension. But then on the flip side, you've got Beyonce and her stable home life in Texas. Her dad's like a salesman. Her mom, she owned a nail salon or a hair salon. I know it's a salon of some kind.
Okay.
But she wants to get into the showbiz side, and they're kind of basically helping guide her through that process by being, stage parents.
The manager?
Yeah, managers, all of it. And just the two polarities between the two extremes, where one's got a stable nuclear family, the other's got his mom, and she's doing as best she can, but he's also out on the streets dealing drugs and everything else. And he's just hustling. And eventually they slowly each rise to the top and then come together. And then they become like this crazy super couple that you assumed it's going to do one of the two things. It's either going to flame out in 18 months, or they're going to stay together for the rest of their lives. Looks like they're going to stay together for the rest of their lives. Who knows? I'm sure there'll be ups and downs in that. Every marriage has that.
There already was. Yeah, there already has.
Yeah. But they stay together.
They do. I'm married 4 times.
Not married 4 times. I mean, I realize that is the bar that if you're going to be a truly just pantheon musical artist, you got to get to 3-4 marriages.
That shows 3 or 4 stages of development.
It does. The impetuousness of youth, and then you got that one out of your system, and then the hubris of your early 30s when you think you've got it all figured out.
Yep.
You've gotten through the turmoil of your teens and early 20s. Then that one fizzles out. And then there's the second chance, your midlife crisis.
Midlife crisis.
And then after that one fizzles out, it's I'm 80 and she's 35. And I'd like to have a little bit of fun before I
also known as the Mick Jagger phase of your
exit this mortal coil. Yeah, I do agree. Their story's not done. I ran into quite a few of these where the story's not done.
Yeah, but there's a lot here. I mean, like you said with Jay-Z and the battles he had coming into the rap game. You could even throw the stuff in with Kanye.
Yeah, you got he was friends with Biggie and Tupac.
Biggie. Yep.
But Biggie and that crew and Puffy. You have Kanye and the Neptunes coming in as producers.
Yep.
You got Dame Dash and the Rockefeller guys as they built Rockefeller.
Yeah.
And then for Beyonce, you've got Destiny's Child.
And there's a lot of drama with Destiny's Child because yeah, I mean, that's a whole lot to explore there because of the first 2, or there used to be 5 in Destiny's Child. And then I think there was one who stormed off because she thought that because their manager was her dad or her mom, they were trying to make Beyonce the lead, and these other women could sing better. And look, that's always been a thing that's dogged Beyonce, is that she's not the strongest singer, kind of like Diana Ross. She's not the strongest singer. So you could argue that some of these other singers that were with her in Destiny's Child were stronger singers. They just didn't have that it thing that she has. That's you can't quantify that it thing.
Do you want to piss off the Swifties next? Because you got the Queen, Bee's army coming after you.
I'm just saying, throwing you truth. And then when I think it was just the four of them, two of them stormed off as well for the same reasons. They felt they were getting shoved to the side to focus on Beyonce. And then eventually a third woman came in. I don't know if it was Kelly Rowland or the other lady.
It was the other one. Kelly was already there.
Okay, so there's the other one who came in.
Michelle? Was it Michelle Williams?
Yeah, I think it was Michelle. Yeah. And so they understood, hey, Beyonce's a star. We're here to sing with her as a companion piece, but not to be necessarily the central figure.
Beyonce is the center figure of this. Yeah. Do I think this is a 3-hour movie? Yeah, probably. Just back and forth. Look, if Elvis alone is 245.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the magnitude of this. It's cheap, though. Yeah. I am doing both, and their story is not over. But Jay-Z's story now is 25 years long in the public eye.
Good point.
26 years long.
Yeah.
And Beyonce's is about 20-ish. That's enough where you could start at least thinking about it. There are other people I think eventually Lady Gaga would have an interesting story.
Sure.
But
I think
it's not written yet. There's quite a few of those and be like, sure, Rihanna. Yeah. But it's not over yet. I don't know where it's going. And hopefully we spend like 15 minutes of the movie on Battleship, because I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Adele's another one that could be interesting.
Yeah. I got Adele. There's a bevy of current artists where you're like, that. I think that will be good. Timberlake's would probably be good. Britney's would probably be good.
Yeah. Britney, I was real close to putting Britney on the list. Real close. Because I was like, just now the conservatives. But I got to see how this plays out first. Then I think that would be a great third act for the movie. All right, that was your 7 or that was your 6? Which one was that? I lost track.
That was my 7.
Okay, what's your 6?
My 6 is Sinatra.
No, that's a punt. Come on.
I don't disagree. These top 6, I think all would make for excellent.
Fair enough.
Biopics. So
okay. My number 7 is Kurt Cobain.
That's a punt.
Okay, I had a feeling. Then my number 6 is Marvin Gaye.
That's also a punt.
Wow. All right. Sounds like we're going somewhere here, Matt.
Basically, yeah. It's like but you have a couple. Wow. So Prince and Dolly are in top 5.
Top 5, son. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Well, look, we're going to take a quick break, hear this word from our sponsor, and then we'll come back and do our top 5s in just a moment. All right, there we go. We've heard from our sponsor, and we're jumping into our top 5s.
Break it down.
So my 5 is Muddy Waters.
Ooh, nice choice. Go ahead, man. Take it away.
So that was the one where technically Jeffrey Wright played him a few, 10, 12 years ago in Cadillac Records.
Yeah, Cadillac Records. Right.
Yeah, with Adrian Brody and others. But how good does the movie Muddy Waters Meets the Devil?
Yeah.
And we just have that as the movie? Dude, I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that film. It's one of the most mythical stories in all of music history.
Yeah.
That he made a deal with the devil. And so if you ever seen the Ralph Macchio movie Crossroads?
Yeah.
That is basically, the Muddy Waters story.
Yeah.
I'm in. Okay. Done. That's all. That's my pitch. Muddy Waters Meets the Devil. Okay. Yeah. Let's go.
Yep.
I think that's the crux of it. And then the decline thereafter and it's this deal with the devil he made and everything.
Yeah.
But I don't have much beyond that. It was just like, boom, that's him. That's on my list. Muddy Waters. He meets the devil. The best story in all of music history. I'm in. Let's see that movie.
What do you want? Yeah, I'm down. I'm down with that. I'm down to see more of that. Yeah, because Crossroads was a bit of it sucks. For the 80s, it was an interesting film, but
it sucks.
Yeah, fair enough.
Steve Vai comes in as the golden fiddle of the devil, and he's playing his guitar, and then eventually he fucks up. I love it in the most un-Steve Vai like way.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous. And full disclosure, because they're trading lick for lick, he is kicking Macchio's ass for like the
Yeah.
first 3 licks when they're
Yeah.
trading back and forth. It's not even close.
Well, I hate to break people's feelings about the 1980s, but both Michael J. Fox and Ralph Macchio were terrible, and Justine Bateman were terrible guitarists. All right, let's put that on the table.
Yeah, I don't even think that's Macchio. The close up is not Macchio.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like this
With
idea that they were, come on. It's people
anybody that had that illusion, yes, probably their mothers, because the rest of us all went, it's a really tight close up. Why wouldn't you just do a 2-shot so we can see him actually play? Oh, because he can't.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Doc Brown saved Marty from a lifetime of mediocrity playing in shit bands until he was in his 40s or 50s. Garage bands playing, still trying to make it. Still trying to make it. Anyway, all right, so that was your 5, right?
That was my 5.
So then my 5 is Dolly, the punt from earlier.
Okay, wow, 5. All right.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much to tell here, man. Dolly is incredible. I mean, the more she ages, the more incredible she seems to become. It's kind of an odd thing. Like, there's a couple of podcasts that are about her that are out there that are pretty stellar, and we hear more and more stories about how she did all the things that she did and dealing with country music at that time, with the way she looked and her assets, shall we say. I'm sure dudes were trying to do all kinds of things to her.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like there's so much to explore there as a woman coming into the world of country music. Were there other women who were like jealous of her because of her assets, because she was pretty and blonde, and so she stood out? Did other women hate her for being that way? That's something to explore. I think of that scene with June Carter in Walk the Line, where that woman walks up and thinks that she can offer her opinion about her divorce. It's like, who the fuck are you? It's just, but there's feeling of like, oh yeah, you got to stay down home, you got to stay country, you got to stay one of us, and what's that process like to where she blows up in the 80s and becomes this pop star and actress into the 90s, and then what happens as she's kind of becoming this how can I say this iconic figure, but like this person people look up to, this kind of mentor, this kind of vaulted being in the world of not just music but pop culture, and then coming out and being so adamant about vaccines and COVID and all that kind of stuff in a time when not a lot of country people were. So she just kind of transcends all that. She's untouchable. She's Teflon. So to explore how she got to that spot, I think would be phenomenal. So much.
Yeah. I mean, it's coal miner daughter-esque. She lives in a small...
Never.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Dolly's a much bigger star.
Yeah.
But lives in a small shack with like 10, 12 siblings.
Right.
And as soon as she gets out of high school, she moves to Nashville, and then she starts writing and gets some songs published and then gets a recording contract. But the balls at that young an age to be like, I'm chasing my dream.
Yeah.
And then going out and then gets hooked up with Porter Wagner, and they have a career for a while. And you think that's all it's going to be. And then she transitions over into the pop world and then gets into movies. And you're like, wow, this is absolutely incredible that she keeps pushing herself and tries to diversify who she is.
Yeah.
And just keep growing and expanding.
Yeah.
As you brought up, it has not petered out. She continues to impress all these years later. Like she got, in essence, awarded with an induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she turned it down.
Yeah, initially turned it down. Yeah.
Just saying, it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I'm not rock and roll.
Yeah, I'm a country artist. Thank you, but no thank you.
Right.
And you're like, God, man, good for you.
And let's not forget Dollywood. Doing a theme park based on you. That's incredible. That doesn't happen. So
the books program to get literacy up in kids. That's amazing.
Yes.
Her story is at this point 7 decades long.
Yeah.
and it's utterly impressive. And she's still going, and she's basically like the next Betty White.
Yeah. 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 Good point. The next Betty White.
Yeah, just somebody we all universally go, man, she's pretty great, right? It's tough to come up with someone that has a crossword to say about her.
Right.
Do you know she has tattoos?
No, I didn't know that.
That's why she's always fully covered.
Oh, wow.
I believe they're for her husband only. Because she's been married to the same guy since 1960 something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess she has like on her arms, she's got a bunch of tattoos and stuff. So you always see her in sleeved attire.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I had no idea. And it's just like, I can't even visualize it.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, what's your 4?
My number 4 is Kurt Cobain. So not much.
Oh, okay. Point. All right. Go ahead, man.
It's just such a meteoric rise.
Yeah.
For somebody who seems as though they're distinctly an introvert, and then having to deal with all these internal demons that they've had for a long time, and they've tried to get out onto the page and perform in front of people. Yeah. And eventually it just becomes too much, and they succumb to their depression and darkness. And that is a hell of an arc for a movie.
Yeah.
I honestly, though, if we want an honest portrayal, we have to do it after Courtney passes.
Yeah, you'd have to fight Courtney the whole time.
Yeah.
The whole time. She would want to argue about the portrayal of her in the situation.
And him, like,
you
know, she'll have rose-colored glasses as to what he was actually like.
Right.
More than likely.
But yeah, and she might be, you never know. I mean, you might have to fight Grohl on this.
Yeah, possibly. Or Kurt Novoselic.
Novoselic, yeah, right. Or even Frances Bean, their daughter, who is gone back and forth on her comments on her mom. So what's her feelings about her dad? I think it'd be interesting, to be honest with you. So
I would imagine it's a time capsule,
Yeah. Right.
She has distinct memories, and that's where they line. She didn't know the man. She just knew her dad when she was really young.
Yeah.
Because I can't even imagine how old she was when he killed himself. What would you guess? 4?
Yeah,
5?
Probably around that age.
Something like that. I mean, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was like in the 1990s, right?
Oh, yeah. It was, I would guess 1995, maybe 94.
Let's see. 94.
94?
Fuck. Yeah. 1967 to 1994, man. 27 years old. It was a fucking shotgun. Jesus. Didn't want to leave any doubt. Didn't want to leave any doubt.
Yeah, I still remember the news helicopter shot of, I want to say it was in like a room above a garage.
Yeah.
Because in my head, it's just like this small, one of those like mother-in-law suite type things where it's above the garage situation. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what my memory tells me. I haven't gone back to look at that footage since.
It's been a while.
Yeah, since it actually aired. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I've never thought about going to see it.
No. Why would you? Yeah, exactly. She was 2 years old, dude. She was born in 92.
Okay.
So yeah, Frances was born in 92 August. So not even 2 years old, because she was born in August of 1992, and he died in April of 1994.
Yeah. So I'd be surprised if she has a memory.
Yeah, good point. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's always tough to talk about him, and I get it's because of the just the way he went out, because he clearly was a guy who was much more introspective than your standard rock and roll star, right? Nobody talks about Eddie Vedder the way they talk about Kurt. I don't think, and even if Eddie Vedder had taken the same route, I don't think they would have talked about him in the same way they talked about Kurt. There was just something about him and his energy and who he was as a person that people felt a natural affinity to care for, male or female, And the lyrics in his music are so fucking deep. You're just like, God damn,
I guess coincidental to me would have been, had he not taken his own life, I don't think that band lasts that much longer.
You're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right.
Whereas Pearl Jam, I assumed they're going to have some longevity just because there was more stability.
Yeah.
When you look at what they're putting out into the world, Nirvana's was dealing with a lot of angst and
Yeah.
issues, depressions, dark shit.
Yeah.
And Pearl Jam would tap into that, but they also had, they were more even keeled.
Yeah.
So I think it is easier to gravitate towards like someone like Cobain because you do want to protect him because he seems so fragile.
He's the Tupac of that genre of music. Like his music is so iconic, and that because of the combo of the lyrics and the music with the Pac, the rap lyrics and the music, it's so iconic. And being taken out at such a young age, of course, Pac being shot, but Pac doing self-destructive shit, like being in situations with people, being in dangerous situations, there was stuff like that. So it was like, it was going to be a miracle that he survived, if he survived into his 40s or 50s. And with Kurt, you're right. I mean, where would he have gone? He's the James Dean, I guess, is a better analogy, the James Dean of music, because there was such potential here to go and be like this really once in a lifetime artist. Because at 20s, in his mid 20s, he was writing lyrics that people in their 40s and 50s would kill to have written, in terms of the construction of those lyrics and the things that he's saying in those lyrics and what he's trying to get and the multiple meanings that are in those lyrics. It's really incredibly layered. And so you'd have to explore the intelligence of him. Remember, Tupac was also a super intelligent fucking guy. So he wasn't a dummy who just happened to figure out rap. Like, he was smart. He's very cultured. Same thing here with Kurt in terms of his intelligence. Not necessarily, maybe not his culture, but certainly his intelligence. So, yeah, I mean, go back and don't even listen to that album that blew him up. The second album has all kinds of music that is just incredible on it. So, but yeah, drugs, dude, fucking drugs. Heroin addiction, his depression, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could be fun to explore. I mean, even talking about it, I get like so sad because of what could have been. But then again, where would he have gone, Matt? Do you think? I mean, you say the group would have broke up. Do you think he would have just been just a solo artist creating like every few years one album?
Yeah.
Type thing? Yeah.
I think that's that. He disappears for a while.
Yeah.
And then everybody wants to work with him. So he still gets the best people to show up to whatever studio in his house that he lives at.
Yeah.
Like basically Axl Rose, except he's not a cunt. Where you don't see him for long stretches. I doubt he would work on Chinese Democracy for 15 years. But just like this recluse type of individual.
That's how you pitch it. Axl Rose, but without being a cunt.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sign me up.
Axl seems like the worst. I thought about like him or Slash. And I was like, well, first off, it had to be a Guns picture.
Yeah.
And I don't want to watch 2 hours of Axl.
Yeah.
Oh, here's when I was a dick again.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about a dude that's got more than likely 4 marriages. I've never looked into his love life. I'd assume if he's taking the plunge.
Yeah. Well, here's the other side of this. And this could have come true too. It could have been him that jettisons the group, that tells Dave.
Undoubtedly. I think.
Yeah. Tells him, hey guys, you got to go and do your thing. I'm holding you back being a part of this group. You guys are advancing. It's like the Beatles, and you're at that level now where you don't need the group. You guys are artists already. Go and do that. Because Grohl's been very vocal at saying he was never going to do another band after Nirvana. Like, he didn't want to lead a band, or that was not his interest. Like, he had no idea of being a lead singer. And it wasn't until, obviously Kurt passed, and then all of the stuff that happened afterwards, it kind of fell into place. So yeah, it would be fascinating to have seen what he would have been. I think you're right. It's like Terrence Malick, just like every few years popping up with this album, and God knows what he'd be exploring or talking about or getting into.
Yeah, I think closest modern analogy would probably be like Tom York.
Yeah. And there's no way he's with Courtney. He eventually, as soon as he cleans up, Courtney's gone. He's absolutely getting ready to go to Courtney.
You never know.
Yeah, you think so?
Sometimes they're just binary planets, they just perfectly gravitationally align, and
she had her way. That's true. It's true. Ugh.
All right. Well, that was my 4. What do you have?
show-stopping conversation. My 4 is Bruce Springsteen to go in a completely different direction.
Boy, I didn't even think about Springsteen.
I
That's
mean,
weird.
come on, especially now that he's in the Broadway stage of his career. It's almost over. So now is a good time to assess Bruce.
Well, you got a lot of New York, New Jersey guys. That's 3 of them so far.
Yeah, I tried to make it more diverse, but I mean, this is where I naturally went. And Bruce,
Yeah,
I love
more diverse. There's one from Long Island, and there's one from Manhattan, and here's one from the Jersey Shore.
Come on, I got George Michael from England. Come on, man, that expands my scope a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Bruce is just so important for me, and it's kind of understanding rock and roll, man. Growing up, I mean, just fucking the first time I heard "Born to Run," my mind just exploded. Just what that song symbolizes, and I don't give Ken Wool a lot of credit for or Robert Wool a lot of credit for anything. But his stand-up set about how Jersey wanted to have Born to Run as their state song, and he's like going through the lyrics and how like suicidal and fatalistic the lyrics are.
It's about getting out of Jersey.
Yeah, exactly. Why the fuck would you want this to be your
Yeah, it's about escaping a shit. It's
Yeah, yeah.
What was the other Springsteen song? Was it Reagan wanted to use or something?
Born
like
in the
that?
USA. He used it. Yeah. Which is about
like
how terrible it is here.
Yeah. You do realize what this song's about, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a protest song. But yeah, I mean, seeing in the 70s how and like he almost came close to giving up. He released that biography in the last year or so, which is really cool. And he talks about like how close he was, that Born to Run, that album, if that hadn't hit, we might never have seen Bruce Springsteen ever again. And that album, he spent so much time, he invested so much money, and then it worked out, so it's a great kind of story of success. And then like you said, Born in the USA album, that album exploded him after he'd kind of walked away for a little bit. And then he became this thing. And then right after that, Tunnel of Love and all the other albums that came through after that, and the different changes all the way leading up to him singing that song after 9/11 that was so cathartic for so many people, My City of Ruins. Fuck, that's such a great song, so there's so much music. And then boom, personal life with Julianne Nicholson. No, Julianne, I forget the woman's name, is the actress who was in Sisters that he was married to. And then, Patti Scialfa, the woman who's been in his band for so long, all of a sudden pops up, and that's the thing. So just so much about exploring him and then his interactions and the people he came in contact with. I mean, the band itself, the E Street Band with Little Stevie and Clarence Clemens and Max, I forget Max's name, and then all the people involved in that. So Max.
Yeah, I think Max Weinberg.
Yeah, Max Weinberg. Sorry. Yes, Max Weinberg. So just all of that, that's a hell of a story.
Yeah. For as uncool as I think Billy Joel is, I think Springsteen is pretty effortlessly cool. Because he's not trying.
Billy's not trying.
Yeah, he is.
Billy just is.
No, he's trying.
Oh my God.
He wants to be Springsteen. He wants to be the New York version of that Jersey thing.
Oh, he's Jersey.
Yeah.
Let's bring his Jersey. Springsteen.
Yeah, guess what? Somebody from Jersey outcooled you and is the I think that you're right. I didn't even think about Springsteen, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, okay. Is that because you see you see them as a band as opposed to a single?
No. It's Bruce.
Okay.
And I'm not taking anything away from him.
Yeah.
It's an eclectic mix of really good artists.
Yeah.
I just, for whatever reason, I literally have a page and I didn't write down Bruce. I don't know why.
Bruce.
Yeah. I think he could definitely, although I think he's got to pass. Another one that I think has to pass.
He absolutely must have a pass, right? I would think so. Let's explore that. So,
but yeah, I think that would make for a really good drama-filled story.
Right? Yeah. Okay. What's your 3?
3 is probably the funnest.
Okay.
Ozzy.
Great choice, man.
Dude.
Go ahead. I love that choice.
Young hoodlum starts getting in trouble with the law and drinking and partying a little bit. joins a band.
Yeah.
You know, his parents are blue collar workers and whatnot. And he's just they're like, all right, you just got to fuck around in a band, apparently. I don't believe they were too pleased with it.
Yeah.
But that band ends up creating a genre of music, heavy metal. And then they make some classic songs.
Yes.
Iron Man and War Pigs, probably.
War Pigs, dog.
But then he gets out of that, falls further into drug use, strikes out on his own solo. It's kind of scary, but then he meets Sharon and has this massive resurgence in the 80s where he is one of a few guys. And the stories that others have of him that he has no recollection of, like the snorting the ants and all that jazz. Or it's so funny when you look at him now as like this kind of, he's this beloved individual.
Yeah.
And he was a social pariah that judiciary committees were, congregating. How do we stop the scourge? Along with D&D, Ozzy's biting the heads off of bats and bringing the devil into our children's ears. And now it goes from that to he pisses on the Alamos, and then he gets, dude, you don't do that in Texas. Find that out the hard way. You got all these little benchmarks, and then the reality star turns him into this lovable guy that we're all like, man, he seems like fun. Him and Sharon, but mainly Ozzy. But like Sharon coming into his life and rescuing him, helping lift him out of the drug addiction, but also with his business affairs and righting the ship. And you could have him getting introduced to Randy Rhoads, and then Randy Rhoads passing, and then like Zakk Wylde coming into his life. And there's just a lot of intersections with bands that he went on tour with, his overall, the legendary parties of his storying. The legendary stories of his partying. Wow, that was a tough one for me. I realize the story's not done, but at the same time, he's been around since the mid 60s. It's much like Dolly.
Yeah.
It's been long enough where I think we could legitimately discuss it.
Yeah.
I just think that's an easy sell. Is it Oscar caliber? I don't know. But do I think it can make a shitload of money? Yeah, I do, actually.
Depends on who you cast, right? I mean, it would depend on who you cast to play Ozzy, but yeah, I could see that. But yeah, I mean, there's so much, like you said, there's so much of his journey to explore, so
there's so many different stages of it.
Yeah. And I forgot about the fucking pissing at the Alamo. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. That was like the last straw. It was after the biting the bat off of a bat, and it's right around when Randy Rhoads goes down, and then he disappears for a while and then comes back with No More Tears.
Yeah.
And then that launches him again. And you're like, oh, yeah, who's great in metal? Is Ozzy. Yeah. And then probably like 5 to 7 years later is the reality show, something like that.
No More Tears.
Yeah.
And that iconic shot of him, isn't he like lifting up Randy or holding Randy in the sky? Was like, I remember that as a kid in the 80s. I remember seeing that picture. So like, Randy being one of those like guitarists that dies early in a band that kind of affects everyone around them, So, I mean, Ozzy's so much. There's so much, man. And yeah, you're right. Fucking War Pigs. Love that dude.
Plus, I've seen him shooting the shit with, McCartney, and it was somebody else.
Oh, wow.
And McCartney had to like remind him of Ozzy has no recollection of the story. And it's like, how many artists have that? It's got to be so many.
Yeah.
And a bunch that have already passed.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's been around for so long that
it's great. I love that choice, man. All right, so then my number 3, and it's a little bit of a cheat because there have been pieces of biopics done with him, but John Lennon is my number 3.
Okay, I figured they'd already been done, so I didn't.
There was a Nowhere Boy, which was about his beginnings with the Quarrymen. And then there was that TV biopic with him and with Jared Harris and Aidan Quinn playing John and Paul.
About the SNL thing.
Yeah, about the SNL thing, which I think is a good little movie.
Yeah, it's fine.
But there hasn't been one that kind of really explores him from the beginning through the Beatles and then into the post-solo life and the battle with McCartney, So, and I think there's such a wealth of drama to explore with Lennon because of the death of his mom, being raised by his aunt, And then, kind of falling in with this group, and then the relationship with Paul, and the relationship with George and Ringo, and then the possible sexual relationship with Brian Epstein. A lot of allusions to the possibility that they had a homosexual and weekend together away. Him writing this music, same thing like with Kurt, like this idea that these guys from Liverpool could come up with music that went from boy band to introspective, socially conscious, phenomenal music that people, and then the construction of the music, musician wise, is just phenomenal. So there's so much and then to break out on his own, and he was scared to go out on his own, being talked out of breaking up the Beatles so that Paul could get the jump on it, which is really fucked up when he wanted to go. And how he navigated that out of that. And then like all the Lost Weekend and all that stuff that happened with him in the 70s, where he was performing with his friends. He was still kind of coming out with great music rather, and then kind of disappears for a couple of years and comes back with Double Fantasy, and then is sadly assassinated. So
yeah,
there's so, and he's only 40 years old. Everything I talked to you happened in 40 years. Like, it's just insane. So, yeah, like when I was watching Elvis, I was like 42 years old. He was 42. 42, man. It is mind blowing for me to think about it. It's some kind of, that's an age. He died early, 42.
Yeah,
crazy. Lennon 40. It's kind of crazy, man. So just that whole thing, and him meeting Elvis, him meeting Muhammad Ali, him meeting all these kind of things, and getting involved in all the organizations, meeting Yoko. Obviously, sorry, I can't leave out Yoko. Obviously, the whole thing with Yoko. So much to explore there as well, and becoming politically conscious, and the bed-ins and the protests and all that stuff. Imagine was a great documentary from the 1980s that kind of explored that a little bit with Lennon, but there's so much more to dive into that I think would be so much fun if you could find the right actor to do it. So,
yeah, him, McCartney, and Harrison, I think would all make for interesting movies.
I don't know. With McCartney, it's weird. Like, I don't ever want to see a biopic of McCartney. Like, I just like, the guy was great, but he was also just kind of cool. Like, the life just kind of worked out for him, and he's a good looking dude, and shit just kind of worked out for him. And I never really sensed angst or drama with Paul that I did with John. Like, John seemed tortured, and so that I find more interest in that. And I don't know how you do a George Harrison biopic after that 4-hour documentary that was incredible that was on HBO.
Well, you use that as a resource, and
maybe, yeah.
But with Harrison, you could bring in the Eric Clapton stuff.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, and also
on
the
top
Tibet
of
stuff.
Yeah. All three of them, I think, would. Yeah. Apologies, Ringo. Yeah. Maybe there's an excellent story in there. It doesn't. I haven't heard it yet.
He survived. He might be the last one left.
Oh, he will be.
Paul. You think he'll outlive Paul? Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe. Oh, maybe. Ringo, the last one left. These sons of bitches. All right, what's your two, bro?
My deuce is Whitney.
Oh, nice choice, man. All right, go ahead. Good choice.
From a musical family, started in the church.
Yep.
Doing gospel and choir and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then Clive Davis taking her and elevating her, basically getting her the right introductions and the right producing partners and whatnot to that early 80s success where she went from, we didn't know who she was, to, wow, this could be the best voice in all of music.
Yeah.
And she just rules the 80s into something like Bodyguard, where then she transitions into movies and has a huge movie. And she tried movies for a while. But that was easily the biggest one she had. And then the third act of it is this weird drug-fueled mania where she spirals into, that's the most intriguing, because that's the one that I feel like I understand the least about. What drove you to end up drowned in a hotel bathtub on cocaine, of all things, that's on top of Benadryl and pot and like 2 or 3 other drugs.
Yeah.
But cocaine, and you fell asleep on that. How is that possible?
Right.
Because there was enough in her system. They were like, well, she just recently used it too. It's not like it's trace amounts.
Right.
So for you to be so strung out to have just recently used cocaine and fall asleep on it, that's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And it just points to a drug addiction that was continuous and
Yeah.
drawn out for a long time. And what then you have the Bobby Brown stuff, and they, did all that. How much was it influence on one another? Did one bring it into? I
Yeah.
don't know. All of that I found absolutely fascinating. But then you look at the contrast, the polarity of where she was brought into the music world and
Yeah.
where she exited the music world. And just like, boy, it's an easy one to make a case of the corrupting influence. Everything that George Michael was talking about, which you brought up earlier, the plasticity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think that it'd be an easy one and potential Oscar caliber because of the way it unceremoniously ends, and she just falls asleep in a bathtub and drowns.
Yeah. And then her daughter does the same thing years
Yeah.
later. Yeah. No, 100% right, dude. I mean, she's such a because I watched that documentary as well, the one on that was on Showtime, and what an exploit. I mean, you just forget what an icon she was in the 1980s into the 1990s with the Bodyguard song, of course, remake of Dolly song, but how she just kind of exploded onto the scene. And there was no, like, you never heard too much about like racism or anything around her. She just kind of transcended all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody loved her, regardless of color or age or gender or sexual orientation, shall I say. It just was, she transcended all of that. People just loved her, and pumping out really good music. And then, yeah, like you said, just falling in with Bobby. How does that happen? And why doesn't she say, fuck this nonsense? Like, why doesn't she have the strength to kind of push away from him or see the red flags and listen to them instead of ignore them? Why? What happened inside that changed her to accept this kind of stuff and deal with it? And then in the end, of course, it led to her death.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's you're right, man. There's so much to kind of dive into. You'd have to fight Bobby the whole way to do that film, but fuck it, why not?
Yeah, just the tragic nature of it, and it closes, and then
Mm-hmm.
whoever that is that takes the part, so long as you pull it off well enough, there's Oscar potential.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, Cynthia Erivo. Had you not done Aretha, you would have been her first choice for this.
Yeah, Jennifer Hudson too. She did Aretha. Although she wouldn't. I don't think she would have been in contention for this, but
yeah, I just think Cynthia is a much better actress. So
yeah, fair. So my number 2 is Sinatra. I mean, how can it not be? Sinatra.
Sure.
It was punt from you, right? Earlier.
Yeah, my 6.
Yeah, Sinatra's my boy. That's my boy. Chairman of the board, man. That's old Blue Eyes. That's my guy, man. And I remember they did a CBS biopic on him. There was a series, not a biopic. It was a series.
With Leota?
No.
Did you see that one?
That's the one on HBO. I saw that one.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It was
with Cheadle as Sammy Davis.
And I just remember Leota as Sinatra, and I was like, nope.
Yeah,
and I'm a fan, Leota. No.
And I forget who played Dean, but it was a terrible Dean. That guy wasn't attractive in the least bit. But there was a CBS one that was, I think it was 4 hours over 2 nights. They even released like a double CD soundtrack of it that I bought. But they haven't done one. And then Scorsese had one lined up. And then the Sinatra estate put a kibosh on it. He was going to do a film on Sinatra, but they put a kibosh on it. And now apparently there's a miniseries coming. So it's not a film, it's not a biopic, it's a miniseries coming. I think it got greenlit in 2021. But it's not a biopic, and I want a biopic. I want something to explore Sinatra from the fucking
Scorsese
beginning.
is the natural choice.
Yeah, right? You would think, especially now.
Buddies,
stage. Yeah.
Buddies with Rickles, knew Jilly,
Yeah.
their shared manager, like loves that era, has nothing but reverence for all those individuals.
Yeah.
If you're not going to have him do it, I'm not sure exactly who you'd want doing it.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. Because, if you look at Sinatra from the beginning, Hoboken, being the son of a woman who's a politician, kind of a ground street politician. Where does that go? What does that lead to? Then he becomes a singer and he leaves a band because he wants to go out on his own. He breaks the contract, rumors about mafia stuff, the Godfather connections, becomes this massive star. What people see in Harry Styles now, what you see, people were doing back in the 1940s for Sinatra. And they scream for Elvis. They were screaming for Sinatra first. The Bobby Soxers, all of that. And then, boom, he's nobody in the 1950s. Almost commits suicide. Bounces back to find himself again at Capitol Records. Becomes the fucking 60s coolest motherfucker on the planet with the Rat Pack. Then starts to stumble in the 70s trying to be cool when he shouldn't be trying to be cool because nobody wants crooners anymore. Marries Mia Farrow, which is a weird thing. And then eventually slides into this kind of statesman position in the 80s and 90s until he passes. So all of that, plus the reuniting Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin on the MDA telethon. There's so much, the stuff with the battles with Kennedy. There's so much to explore with Sinatra. The shit with Marilyn. There's just so much to explore with Sinatra, both good and bad, that I think would be just a wealth of stuff to have in a script and to explore on screen with a biopic.
Yeah, it's such a rich life.
Yeah.
That I don't even know how you do it in a biopic unless you do a sliver of time.
It's true.
Because the mafia stuff alone could easily be a picture on its own. It's just like, oh, he's this young singer coming up and the connections he makes there and then the doors they open.
Yeah.
And it closes with like this, he's playing in Vegas for huge crowds now and then just boom. But yeah, no, I think it's a really good one. It just doesn't, the others had like a lot more drug use or a bitter end type of thing. But Sinatra, I told you, my top 6, I think they're all.
Yeah.
And he was 6. I think there's a damn good movie in there somewhere.
Agreed. All right. What's your one?
My one is The Punt from You, Marvin Gaye.
Wow. Okay. Go ahead, my man.
His father shoots him.
Yeah, true. Massive.
At the height of his game.
At the height of his comeback game.
Yeah. He would have been the Motown guy, and then he goes off, and he just put out his album, like the national anthem at the NBA All-Star game here in LA was one of his last live appearances.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
And not too much longer after that, him and his father got into a dispute, and his father killed him. His father only ended up getting like 5 years.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous. Like got a suspended sentence and then probation for a long time, but it's like he killed his son. How do you just get away with such a short slap on the wrist type penalty?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think because he was a reverend, and then also it's been revealed, I think in some news items that he had relapsed. Marvin had, and what his father did was, in his mind, save his son from going back to where he was, considering how much work it had been for him to come back. And as soon as he was successful again, he fell victim to the demons again. And his father felt like, I'm going to take him out because I don't want him to end up strung out on the street somewhere. And that's not where he belongs. Fucked up thinking. Absolutely. But possibly what was going on with him, and of course, Spike Lee used it as something to you in Jungle Fever when Ozzie Davis kills Samuel L. Jackson. So a brutal scene, bro. That's a brutal scene.
But that alone, you just read that and it sits with you, and you're like, what is the mentality of the father?
Yeah.
Let alone the son, but to make the choice. I understand the logic of what he's saying. It's not like it's completely irrational, but every other time you see a parent discuss their child, it's like, I would do anything. I would die for them. I love them more than anything in this world. And then to take that person, from the world. It's, God, I mean, just Jesus Christ. So that one to me is,
Yeah.
I would love an exploration of that dynamic, because you do have all the Motown stuff, and he's riding high on that, and then the comeback later on. So you
Right.
have the classic up, down, back up again.
Yeah.
So you're following the trajectory of a normal hero's journey type of story,
Yeah.
and instead of reaching the mountaintop, you get crushed by the Hillary step.
Yeah. The Edmund Hillary stuff.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, this is not what I was anticipating.
Yeah.
Whereas like Whitney's is slow, gradual decline,
Right.
and you see it coming. Marvin's not as much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from the start, when he's kind of establishing himself, gets involved with that older woman, and then breaks off with that to be, I think, with Berry Gordy's daughter or Berry Gordy's niece or something. And then that divorce happens, and the only way he can get out of his Motown contract is doing this. So he does an album that's totally about his divorce and sending these messages out to her. He gets involved with drugs. He, does that whole let's get it on, takes off his clothes except for his underwear on stage. We go from the guy who was singing these great Motown songs, you said, to a guy who becomes politically conscious with what's going on and becomes a member of the movement, but then starts to succumb to these other demons of his that almost destroy him. And he climbs out, and sexual healing reintroduces him to a whole new generation and to the fans again.
Yeah.
Who've been there from the beginning. And unfortunately, the drugs, and he kills him. His father kills him, which is, as you said, Matt, just heartbreaking. So
Yeah, it's tragic.
Yeah. So there's so much that can be explored. And they've tried. Like Jesse L. Martin was in line, and he would have been a great choice to play Marvin Gaye way back when Rent was big on Broadway, and he was on Law and Order. There was definitely conversations that were happening that he was going to play Marvin Gaye in a biopic. It never got off the ground. And there have been 2 or 3 attempts to get a Marvin Gaye biopic off the ground. They just haven't happened. So it seems odd because there's a lot to explore here. So my number 1 is Prince. Your punt from earlier, the number 10 for some reason down there. There is so much to explore with Prince. So much. Prince Rogers Nelson. The man was 11 years old at a teacher's strike being interviewed talking about what was going on.
Yeah, I've seen the video. It was floating around on Reddit like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
It's intellectual discourse from an 11-year-old. I appreciate that. But, what he becomes and how he gets into the business and being a diminutive guy, what's the struggles there? People discounting you maybe, what do you have to fight for? Then becoming this like sexual icon, then blowing up with Purple Rain and having the hubris to make a movie about your life. When before you're even a fucking huge star, like that movie is what makes you the huge star with the soundtrack. And then what happens after getting rid of the Revolution, going solo for a bit, then getting involved with the what is it? The new, I forget what this other band was called, and then get involved with that, what he creates. And then of course the drug stuff. And then, writing all the songs with it for everybody else, like Nothing Compares to You and Manic Monday and all these, like helping these artists establish themselves, and then, going off and then eventually succumbing to drugs himself. I saw him live when he was doing the thing at the Forum when he was doing those 25 nights or whatever. And for $25 a ticket, you got to go see Prince. That was insane. And it was incredible. And seeing him live is one of the highlights of my life, man. And just, there's so much here to explore with him. The relationships he had, the stuff he was into, the Batman soundtrack, for God's sakes. There's just so much with Prince.
Yeah.
And I think he's so beloved still, and so many artists are influenced by him. There's that. You talk about videos on the internet. Anybody who hasn't seen him show up to play "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" with all these other guitarists at the Rock and Roll
Hall of Fame,
right?
Yeah,
and they all just kind of go, "Oh fuck, man!" They should just kind of sit back and let Prince do his thing because he is that fucking talented. So I don't think people really grasp how talented he fucking was, like how naturally gifted, instinctive of a musician that he was, that for him playing was like breathing. It was not a big deal. And he was doing it at the highest levels you can do it.
Yeah, I had him lower just because if you compare him to the bulk of my list,
Hmm.
they've had ebbs and flows in and out of public discourse for
Yeah.
decades on end. And really, Prince has about 10 years.
What?
He does. Early 80s to early 90s. And then he kind of, becomes a recluse.
Are you discounting controversy? Are you discounting all the stuff in that? I Want to Be Your Lover, all the stuff from the 70s? Like, are you insane? That is great shit in the 70s.
Yeah, but he really jumps off late 70s, early 80s.
Well, 80s is where he blows up. Yes, because
Yeah.
I think Purple Rain's 84. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but I would say like 1980, 1982 is when he starts to enter the public consciousness.
Oh, with Little Red Corvette. Yeah, 1999. Yeah.
Emerging out into the world.
Yeah.
And then through the early 90s, I would guess Last Gasp or somewhere on like Diamonds and Pearls.
Yeah.
Something along those lines when he became the symbol. And then he always loomed large. Like his halftime show at the Super Bowl is one of the best.
Oof. Yeah.
Of all time.
Yes.
And instead of doing the big histrionics and set pieces, a massive sheet silhouetted because he's backlit. Awesome. That's way better than everything else I've seen. And couldn't have scripted it better. It starts raining.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that 10 years is amazing. But then he just kind of disappears from, had he passed away at that, I would agree.
Okay.
It deserves to be much. It still made my list.
Okay.
Because he's Prince, for Christ's sakes. I just think the other one, like Sinatra, you have 60 years to delve into.
It's true. I think there's more to Prince than you think, but all right, that's fine.
There very well could be. That's why this biopic is going to be incredible.
Yes. All right, well, there you go. That's our separate lists here for the top 10 solo artists we want to see biopics from. We're going to put the list together here, and then we'll do shout outs after that. Grabbing the bongos now. No dogs this time, so there'll be no barking.
Where did you have Marvin Gaye again?
There'll be no barking, but on your deathbed, you'll achieve total consciousness. Marvin Gaye is 6.
All right, so that's 1-6. Technically now Prince is 9 because I just put BB at 10.
Oh, okay.
So that's 1. So do we want to do Marvin Gaye then Prince?
Sure. That works. Distant lover.
Let's see. Cobain and Sinatra would be our next in common, and Dolly.
Sinatra's my 2.
He's my 6, and Cobain is your 6?
Cobain is my 7.
Okay. I would say Sinatra.
Okay.
Kurt Cobain.
Okay.
And then Dolly.
Sure. I'm cool with that.
All right. What's your next highest?
Lennon at 3.
All right. I got Whitney at 2.
Ooh.
And I got Ozzy at 3. So
Oh boy. The Battle of the Brits.
flip the old coin.
I feel like I should get that, but all right.
You feel like I should get that?
I
I mean, I agree with you, but I'll flip the coin to be
If you can compare
judicious and fair.
Let me tell you thing.
And John Lennon wins.
Yes. Thank
2
you,
weeks
Jesus.
in a row for you.
Thank you, Jesus.
All right, next highest.
Springsteen at 4.
Okay, that makes it on.
Oh, nice.
I've got my 5.
Okay.
What do you got?
Do I have my 5? Dolly Parton? No. So that's yours.
All right, Muddy Waters.
Muddy makes the list, huh?
Done and done.
Nice. All right, let's do this thing. The top 10 solo artists they need a biopic. Yeah. At number 10.
Muddy Waters.
At number 9.
Bruce Springsteen.
At number 8.
Ozzy Osbourne.
At number 7.
John Lennon.
At number 6.
Whitney Houston.
At number 5.
Dolly Parton.
At number 4.
Kurt Cobain.
At number 3.
Frank Sinatra.
At number 2.
Prince.
And our number 1 artist that needs a biopic is
Marvin Gaye. There
Get
it
up,
is.
get up.
And if
All
you guys
right.
end up enjoying Elvis, let us know. John's already seen it.
Yeah.
I will definitely be seeing it. So It's inevitably coming. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinions.
Yeah.
So please let us know. But we're going to jump into shout outs. So this is what we do for our patrons. At the end of the month, at least we try and get it done by the end of the month. At the $5 tier and above over at patreon.com/the top 10 with the number 10. We shout their name out as a way of saying thank you for supporting the show. And I'll go ahead and start us off.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to bring it up. All right, go ahead.
Oliver Madrill.
Mike Boder.
Scott G. Collins.
Steve Smith.
Drew Gorzicki.
Fraser Jubb.
Jason McDonald.
Ruby.
Pele Cole.
Eric Taylor.
Deepak Mauer.
David Stephen.
Andrew Robinson.
Francisco Ramirez.
Michael Bauer.
Colton Thompson.
Henrik Winterland.
Callie Onken.
Lachlan Skinner.
Charles Kim.
Joseph Curran.
Fred Castillo.
Charles J. Clark.
Zachariah Kaufman.
Jeff Dickin.
Francisco J. Torres.
Connor Teal.
Michael D. Dyke.
Tim Reimert.
Dominic Reeves.
Eric Bruin.
Matt Simmons.
Jeremy Bowers.
James Petty.
Nick Francis.
Christopher Brockman.
Blake Gant.
Cameron Chapman.
Alex Russell.
Paul Cree. So Paul.
Stacy Flores.
Luke Allison.
Kristen Kurtz.
Gareth Weldon.
Timothy R. Williams.
Nick Baldwin.
Janae Taylor.
Ahmad Ali.
Darren Bush.
Angela Dashner.
Drake Fromsdorf.
Josh Lawrence.
Chelsea Lewis.
Adelardo Fuente.
Reagan Lovig.
Andre Constantinescu.
Steve Schluckebeyer.
Catherine Samuels.
Houston Bodley.
Roque Orellana.
Maurice Robinson.
Brandon Caridi.
Marlon T. A.Z. Badfish.
Ravi Prasad.
Joe Fairley.
Ben Cartwright.
Josh Murphy.
Mike Orikar.
Josh Sachs.
George Menchaca.
Dale Varley.
Wayne Murphy.
Ashley Prowse.
Johannes Schmidt.
Sam Fernando.
Kevin Fuss.
Pardon me. Ryan McKenna.
Brian Akins.
Alexander Marzonia.
Garth Wisenant.
Mike Barrington.
Noel Kelleher.
Jim Payne.
David Mitchell Baker.
Andy Ortiz.
John Keefe.
Kristen Smith.
Marcel Behrman.
James Trapani.
Drew Enns.
Dan Nye.
Matthew Hasso.
Seth Shearer.
Andrew Marker.
Chris Jones.
Luke Larson.
Chris Cabrera.
Robert Haley.
And Anthony Casanova.
There you go.
That is everybody. So thank you to all that support us. We thoroughly appreciate it. And you can follow the show on Twitter at Top 10 Show, all spelled out. On Instagram and YouTube, it is /the Top 10 Podcast with the number 10. So please hit us up. And you can follow me anywhere at Matt Knows. Check out Settle the Score if you want another movie-related trivia show. And it's movie music, actually. Or if you want NBA action, well, by the time you hear this, the season is over. So dropping dimes may or may not be tomorrow. Not sure.
There you go.
So that is it for me.
All right. As for me, you can follow me at The Roca Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The Outlaw Nation on Twitch for sure. My other podcast, the Cinephiles and the Geek Buddies, and also my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Roca Says for all the latest reviews and live shows that we do there on the channel as well. So thank you all so much for joining us for the Top 10. We appreciate it madly for another fun week conversation about a film-related topic for sure. And we'll be back next week. Don't forget, Topic Thunder is out there for you to listen to as well every week. Drop in a half-an-hour program where we answer your questions, thoughts, and comments about anything you want to ask us about. So if you're a patron at the $5 and above level, start sending in your questions, thoughts, and comments as well. If you haven't done that in a while, send in what you've got going on. Summer's about to happen, or summer's happening, so I'm sure you've got questions about the world. So there you go. All right, well, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the Top 10. Peace.
Bye-bye.